vanishing town. As a child, Thomas had always been fantasized by places that were rumored to be haunted. The darker the tale, the more he wanted to explore. His friends had long since outgrown such fantasies, dismissing them as nothing more than stories meant to entertain. But for Thomas, the thrill of the unknown, the promise of discovering the truth behind the supernatural, never left. One autumn evening, when Thomas was in his late 20s, he overheard an old man at a bar telling a story about a town called Greyhaven. It was a place he claimed had disappeared off the map years ago. The townsfolk, according to the tale, were said to have vanished overnight. All that remained was the faint echo of their lives, empty houses, silent streets, and a mystery fog that never lifted. No one had ever figured out what happened, and the authorities had closed off the area, deeming it unsafe. This story captured Tom's attention immediately. He asked the man for more details, but the old man simply shrugged. "It's best left forgotten, son," he muttered, his eyes lighting. Greyhaven isn't a place for anyone to be poking around, trust me. That, of course, was all the encouragement Thomas needed. For days, he couldn't stop thinking about the ghost town and its eerie disappearance. He researched it at a local library, finding newspapers clipping from the late 1960s that referred the town's sudden and unexplained vanishing. There were no answers, just rumors and whispers. Determined to uncover the truth, Thomas packed his things, prepared for a weekend trip into the heart of Greyhaven. He borrowed his friend's old Jeep, bought a map, and set off early one Saturday morning. The drive was longer than he had anticipated. The weather was usually gray for early fall, and the road to Greyhaven seemed more like a forgotten trail than an actual path. By the time Thomas reached the outskirts of the town, the fog was thick and suffocating, just as the old man had described. He parked the Jeep by a weathered sign that simply read "Welcome to Greyhaven," and stepped out into the oppressive silence. There was an odd chill in the air, and Thomas felt a shiver crawl up his spine as he glanced around. The town appeared to be stuck in a strange frozen moment, an eerie stillness hanging over every building. The streets were empty, with not a single car or person in sight. Every window of every house was shut tight, and yet there was no sign of decay. It wasn't as though the place had been abandoned for years. There were no weeds growing through cracks in the pavement, no rusted metal or shattered glass. It was as if the town had simply been frozen in time. Thomas pulled out his camera, taking a few pics of the houses, sidewalks, and the eerie perfect street. He felt uneasy, but the curiosity that he had brought him here pushed him forward. He decided to explore further. He walked down the main street, past a small grocery store that still had its sign up. Despite its early abandoned state, everything appeared to be immaculate. The faded paint on the buildings, the sidewalk tiles, all were in better condition than he would have ever expected. A place that had supposedly been deserted for so long. Turning a corner, he came across what seemed to be a town square. There was a large fountain in the middle, its water still flowing in the continuous stream. Despite the appearance of anyone to maintain it, he stood there for a moment, staring at the water and listening to the soft murmur as it splashed gently into the basin below. Then his attention shifted to a nearby bench. At first, he thought it was empty, but then he saw it. A faint outline of figure sitting on a bench, almost as if it was made of mist. Thomas' heart skipped a beat. He quickly glanced around, but there was no one in sight. Was he seeing things? Before he could fully contemplate the strange sight, the figure shifted. Thomas froze, not knowing whether to run or confront whoever was there. Slowly, the figure rose from the bench, and for a moment, Thomas could have sworn that that person was fading. Vanishing into the air, their outline became more and more transparent until they were nothing but a flicker, like a dying candle. In that moment, panic set in. Thomas's instincts screamed at him to leave, but his legs felt like lead, refusing to cooperate. The figure was gone, but the unsettling feeling didn't fade. The fog seemed to thicken around him, as though it were alive, wrapping itself around him. Just as he turned to leave, he saw something even stranger. A figure walking down the street towards him. A woman dressed in clothes that looked out of place, as though they belonged to another time. Her clothes were simply an old-fashioned dress, slightly worn, and her expression was vacant, her eyes hollow. She walked slowly, and though Thomas tried to call out to her, no sound came from his mouth. She approached him and passed by without acknowledging his presence. Continuing down the street, what was going on here? His mind raced. He needed to leave, but something deep inside urged him to stay. He had come this far, and now he had to know the truth. As the evening wore on, Thomas found himself wandering deeper into the town. The streets seemed to stretch on endlessly, and the fog never lifted. Every time he tried to turn back, the path ahead of him seemed to shift, leading him further into the unknown. Hours passed, and he felt as if he were walking through an endless maze. The sun had long since set, but there was no nightfall here, only a dim, gray twilight that never gave away to darkness. Then, as he passed to the old church at the far end of the town, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. The church bell, hanging high in the tower, was ringing. Not with the slow toll of a normal bell, but with the fragile urging of someone desperate. Thomas stood frozen, his heart hammering in his chest. The sound was faint, almost, but it was there. Someone or something was calling. Against every instinct in his body, Thomas made his way towards the church. When he stepped inside, he was struck by an overwhelming sense of dread. The interior was cold, the stone floor rough beneath his feet. The outler was covered in dust, as though no one had stepped foot there in decades. As he turned to leave, he heard it, a faint sound, like a whisper, coming from the furthest corner of the church. You shouldn't be here. His breath caught in his throat, and his eyes searched the darkened corners of the church. He felt as if the air itself was thickening, closing in on him. And then, as if from nowhere, a shadow appeared before him. It was a figure, tall, and shrouded in darkness. The whispering grew louder, but he couldn't make out the words. "This town doesn't want you here. Leave now, before it's too late." Terrified, Thomas turned to flee, but the doors slammed shut with a deafening crash. He spun around, his mind racing for an escape, but the figure was closer now. Its face no longer observed. Hollow eyes stared back at him, empty and lifeless. Its mouth moved, but no sound came from it. He ran, feeling the walls close in as the fog outside thickened, swirling around him of darkness. He heard the bells ringing again, louder this time, and the whispers echoed in his ear, growling frantic. As Thomas reached the town's edge, he stumbled into the fog, gasping for air. His heart pounded in his chest. When he finally made it back to his jeep, he didn't look back. He didn't stop to check the rearview mirror as he sped out of the town. He just drove, faster and faster, until the town of Greyhaven was nothing but a fading memory in the distance. When Thomas returned home, he found something strange. His map was gone, and the pictures he had taken of the town had vanished from his phone. There was no trace of Greyhaven, nothing to prove it had ever existed. It was as if the town had never been there at all. But deep down, Thomas knew the truth. Greyhaven had never left. It was waiting.